Okay, guys, this will be a fun thing to delve into here. This is from Cultaholic Wrestling Channel. It's 10 most legit WWE tough guys ever. Now, there's probably not going to be any surprises in here, but this is, to me anyway, is always still a fun conversation to have and give your opinions on as far as who were the baddest of the bad. Now, the one thing I think we can all universally agree on, if Meng is not on the list and is not at the top of the list, this is not a real, it's not a real list. It's not, it is unacceptable. I'm sure Meng will appear.
To be a WWE superstar, you have to be tough. Taking all of those bumps and doing all of that travel, not to mention trying to navigate the political nightmare that is backstage, is physically and mentally exhausting
deal with
work,
a lot of pain.
You need to be of strong body and mind to do it. In a world ruled by testosterone
That's
and
true
ego-fueled alpha males, some men
just
stand
having
out
a
as being
career in
tougher
wrestling.
than the average. There have been no shortage
Even
of
if you
tough guys
spend
to
it in
grace
indies
the
your whole
WWE
life,
locker room, but
it's
some
rough.
of those have turned out to be more myth than reality. I mean, everyone thought that JBL was some sort of feared brute until first Bart Gunn and then Joey Styles, yes, the announcer, found him out and cleaned his clock.
JBL was more just a big guy bully
during a bar fight and tough as in won a world championship at the highest level in a combat sport. As the joint third hardest member of the
I do like this
team,
guy's voice. I like his
the metal and
delivery
fortitude and punching power of premier athletes who, dare I say, remind me a little of myself. And a disclaimer too, this list is focusing solely on tough male performers.
Oh, Steve Blackman.
As a slight towards their female counterparts. They will get that
Steve Blackman
soon,
was legit.
And there have been many women in WWE who have been tougher than a lot of the men folk. From Alundra Blaze and Jacqueline to Beth Phoenix and Jazz. And let's not pretend that Ronda Rousey couldn't destroy 75% of WWE superstars past or present, male or female. And if you have a problem with that, Venus, I'll see you round the back of the bike.
It's tough when you start trying to compare
from cultaholic.com, and these
women
are the 10 most legit
as far as toughness in a real fight to men, just
ever.
because of the obvious differences.
Number 10, Steve Blackman. Nicknamed the Lethal Weapon for good reason, Steve Blackman never achieved higher than mid-card status in WWE.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not doubting whether he should be on the list. I'm doubting whether or not he should be all the way down at 10.
The mainstay, who nowadays works as a bail bondsman and MMA trainer, was a feared man during his time with the company and had several run-ins with some of the locker room's biggest competitors. On one occasion, Blackman almost took out a drunk and belligerent...
And again, when I talk about these things, I don't want to try and give you guys the impression that I know all or something. It's just that I've been fortunate enough that in my years in the business and working with guys who came through the WWE regularly, you feel like you get to know a good little bit about these guys through stories of the people who shared locker rooms with them. So I never want to try and give an impression like I'm more well-versed or know these guys better than I do.
The loudmouthed acolyte who wanted to keep all of his teeth duly obliged.
Yeah.
And another, serious Steve took down the Big Show with ease and tied him up like a 500-pound pretzel, only letting him go when he felt like it. Fellow WWE hardman Bob Hardcore Holly has said time and time again that Blackman was legitimately the most dangerous person he's ever been in the ring with, while UFC Hall of Famer Ken Shamrock reckons he would have been a success in the octagon had he chosen an alternate career path. And remember, if you...
Yeah, everything I've ever heard about Blackman just talks about what a legit badass he is. And overall, at least, you know, the impressions I got of him from those who knew him, good guy too.
To get Blackman down,
really good guy.
Bear in mind that he has come back from life-threatening malaria, a broken neck,
That's right, I remember that.
Head cheese.
No.
Number 9,
Head cheese was extra rough. Wow, Scott Steiner.
If you fear
listen,
stories of Scott Steiner's
talking about
are numerous and legendary.
World-class amateur wrestler,
the self-proclaimed big bad booty daddy has terrorized grapplers across decades
insanely
in
powerful,
WCW, Japan,
and kind of
WWE,
nuts.
TNA, and beyond.
Not kind of,
brother Rick,
and
another
nuts.
hard case, were both standout amateur wrestlers in
So
high school and college.
Steiner over
Scott
Blackman,
in the nation
boy, that's
during
close.
his senior year. Big Papa Pump was always a little out there, and he and his brother would routinely rough up enhancement talent
a little
earlier in their
bit.
careers while causing chaos backstage. But Scott really blossomed.
Scott Steiner was not, you know, one of the world's great orators. His promos were interesting; they were fun, but as far as being able to kick some serious ass. Yes. Did he have issues sometimes with work in the ring?
Late 90s. Within a relatively short space of time, the genetic freak started something with J.J. Dillon, Ric Flair, a Georgia State of Transportation worker, and most famously, Diamond Dallas Page, who he absolutely battered during an episode of Nitro, trying to remove his eye after an incident involving DDP's wife, Kimberly. Steiner hasn't exactly mellowed much in the years since and was actually banned from attending WWE's 2015 Hall of Fame ceremony because of a fear that he would actually kill longtime rival Hulk Hogan. Demonstrating his toughness in another way, Steiner has twice come back from life-threatening injuries.
I don't think there's any doubt about who wins in the Scott Steiner Hulk Hogan shoot. That one's a given.
He has a 141 2/3% chance of winning any actual fight he finds himself in, even as he approaches his 60s.
Yeah, is a badass dude. Really? Now this one's a little surprising.
Now plying his trade as Jake Hager in AEW, Swagger was recruited to
the University I know he's a great amateur wrestler.
Athlete in wrestling and football, where he excelled at both. Swagger was recruited to WWE
right, let's hear what he has
by,
to say.
who else? Jim Ross, and joined the organization as a collegiate All-American and with a university record for most pins in his weight class. Impressive credentials
I knew
for
about
sure,
that.
and a good launching pad for his professional career. Swagger did very well for himself in WWE, winning the ECW and World Heavyweight titles, but by the end of his run, he wanted out in order to pursue other endeavors, namely fighting for real. Several months after he requested and was granted a release,
I've forgotten
Swagger
about
signed
this.
with Bellator MMA, and as of this recording, has 2 wins and 1 no contest.
As a matter of fact, I'll have to look up his record because I had forgotten all about that Swagger went into MMA when his career was over. We'll have to see if we'll have to look up some of what he did in MMA. See how his fights look.
For repeated and unintentional shots to his opponent's groin. Something he must have learned
sorry
at
about
the
that.
Ric Flair school of MMA. In his fights so far, Swagger has shown to not only be adept at amateur wrestling, but also submissions and strikes. And remember, this isn't some rinky-dink local indie cage fighting group, but Bellator, one of the most renowned in the entire world.
Absolutely.
No telling how far Swagger
Tough guys
will go
fighting
in the mixed
Bellator.
martial arts world, but the early signs are encouraging, and win or lose, just by competing, he has enhanced his reputation in the world of sports entertainment.
All right.
Number 7, Bobby Lashley.
Boy, I don't know about having him above the 2 guys below him, though.
Lashley's another WWE
That's a
hard
tough
nut
one.
that didn't have to demonstrate his
Wow,
toughness
look at
by
Lashley.
picking on his smaller co-workers or dispatching drunks in the bar after hours. No, Lashley proved his tenacity first in college, then in the
And we
army,
know
and
Lashley, of
finally
course,
in the world of MMA.
did well in
A
MMA
decorated
as well.
amateur wrestler, Big Bob was at one point training for the 2004 USA Olympic team before an injury cut short that dream. It was while training for the Olympics that Lashley was visited by Kurt Angle, who would be instrumental in getting him signed to a WWE developmental deal. Once his WWE run was finished,
Lashley, I've always liked Bobby Lashley. Just seems like a good dude. I like his background. Got the great look. He got much better as the years went by on the mic too, speaking. Because early on it was rough. But again, that was not his
background. He turned his attention back to the world of real sports and began an MMA journey that saw him amass 15 wins to 2 losses in organizations like Strikeforce and Bellator. One of those losses, it should be added, was due to referee stoppage. Turns out that Lashley was suffering from mono, leaving him severely dehydrated and unable to train for months
I didn't know about
afterwards.
that.
Over the course of his brief but memorable MMA career, Lashley won fights by decision, submission, and TKO. Few men were able to find an answer for a man that is practically 260 pounds of pure granite. A rumored fight with Brock Lesnar sadly never went down, but there's every chance we could see it happen in a WWE ring one day soon.
That would have been a great MMA fight. Brock and Lashley, I would pay for that one. And it's funny, too, as we watch this, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, and we're waiting for where Haku comes in on the list. The thing is, the reason I think I would put, and a lot of people would put Haku at the top of the list, is, again, the reputation of all these guys, the fights could go either way. If we're just talking, if we're not talking MMA, we're talking knockdown, drag out, shoot, street fight. Haku is insanely powerful. He's absolutely crazy, and he's willing to do whatever. That's a big one. There aren't a lot of guys that are actually willing to bite someone else's nose off. Haku was. So I think a lot of your training gets thrown out against him. I think he's the top guy. always known as a tough guy.
Tough guy reputation and
I don't know that
WWE career may have been
I hate
ruined
to
by
say
the
it because I like
disastrous Brawl for
Dr.
All
Death.
tournament. It's worth remembering that there was a
I
reason
don't
that
know
Steve
that he'd
Williams was
stay
at
with a
one
lot
point
of these
considered to be
guys.
the favorite to win the whole damn thing. Williams entered the tournament with a fearsome rep that had been built on the back of his many wrestling and football exploits.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not belittling Steve Williams at all.
Williams has spent
He's a
much of his
badass.
career in Japan, having
Just my
countless
opinion.
brutal
I don't
and
know that he's
hard-hitting classics
in
the
their
land
primes.
of the
He stays
rising
with
sun.
some of these
Williams
others.
had an aura, and American wrestling fans knew who he was thanks to his time in WCW. His genuine toughness and impactful brawling style made him a prime candidate for a program with top star Stone Cold Steve Austin, which was on the cards before the Brawl for All loss.
And Steve
necessitated a
Austin
spell on the
is Steve
sidelines.
Austin
Never one to shy away
because
from
of
a
Dr.
dust-up,
Death, because
Williams in his prime
Austin's
would
real
take
name
on
is Steve
all
Williams.
comers, whether they were civilians,
So we
fans,
wasn't gonna
or
use
even
that.
his fellow wrestlers. He could also take it as well as he gave out, one time receiving 108 stitches to close an eye wound and returning to work the next day. A double tough
That's
SOB
wrestling.
right to the end, Dr. Death valiantly battled throat cancer for years before sadly passing away on December 29th, 2009.
That is sad.
Number 5,
But
Haku.
I just don't know.
Number 5 is Haku, which makes you think, Jesus
You
Christ,
got
are there
4
other
ahead of him?
WWE stars
Yeah.
who could be considered tougher than a man with Haku's
gonna be Brock
reputation?
Lesnar.
Reputation is the key word here, because while universally recognized as a terrifying badass of legendary proportions,
Okay, make your
most
case.
of Haku's feats of malice took place in bars in the
Right.
80s and 90s, and the stories have been told by wrestlers who may or may not have been just a little bit inebriated when it all went down. That said, there are way too many stories out there for some of it to not be true, and whether he fought
Yeah.
off 8 or 80 police officers, gave a guy a black eye or ripped out his eye hole and then ate it, his name is the name that most wrestlers speak when asked who the toughest guy in
And
the
there's a
business
reason
is
for that,
or
and it's not
was.
just 'cause of his
In the
bar
age before
fights.
social media, wrestlers could just
I
about
think
get away
he's
with
wrong
rolling
here.
into town, throwing a drunk guy through a wall or two, and leaving before the police caught on to what had went down, and that seems to be a recurring theme with Haku, who apparently worked light as a feather in the ring and was a sweetheart to be around
Oh,
when he wasn't
everybody.
choking somebody out or
Everybody
biting off
said he
nose.
was a great
Haku
guy.
is a man whose toughness is almost mythical, but a lack of real-world combat sports experience prevents him from being higher. But
I completely disagree with him on that. Having unfortunately been involved in not only wrestling and boxing and some, martial arts, I always enjoyed fighting arts or fighting in general. I've also been in my share of street dust-ups, and I'm telling you, it's a whole different world than being skilled at MMA. And MMA is great. And MMA is going to let you win a street fight. If you're skilled at MMA, you're going to win a vast majority of your street fights. But when you encounter somebody who is just insanely powerful, tough, and crazy, I'm going with that guy. And Haku does have martial arts background.
He actually took the top spot on this list, and we're all very sorry, and that we really
There you
like
go.
him, and we're sorry. We're sorry.
We're
we
sorry.
didn't mean it, and we're sorry.
That's good. I like the way he
Number
puts stuff
4,
together.
Dan 7.
See, I don't think Haku is
He may
hype
look like an
at
uncle in an
all.
old
I
sitcom,
think it's
but
all
remember
legit.
that appearances
Yeah,
can
Dan
often
Severn's
be
such a
deceiving,
tough
and that Dan
bastard.
Severn could probably grab you, take you down, and stretch you 50 different ways in the time it takes you to stop sniggering at that bad opening joke. One of the pioneers of modern MMA, Dan Severn is one of the only men in history to have had over 100 pro fights, winning 101 out of 127.
That's
Now in
amazing.
his 60s, the Beast hasn't ruled out returning to the cage and has frequently lobbied for another match with perennial rival Ken Shamrock. Because when you're a tough son of a such and such, you're apparently one for life. A UFC Hall of
Absolutely.
Famer, Severn is one of the
I
men who
see,
put
I
the
can't-
organization on the
I
map during
can't
the
fault
90s,
putting Severn
when
up there.
participants would routinely compete in multiple fights in one night. His octagon accomplishments
thinking
opened
of
the
who's
door
behind-
to the NWA
again.
and the WWE, though the straight-laced and
If we're
no-nonsense
talking
Severn failed to really get over during
street
the
fights,
outlandish Attitude Era.
Haku
He
is the only
certainly
one
got
I
over with the
would
boys, though. Many of
say
whom
that
were
I would definitely
genuinely
put above
afraid
him.
that he would shoot on them in the ring, and in order to avoid a pummeling, referred to him as Mr. Severn backstage. Number 3, Ken Shamrock.
That's fair. Again, if you're going to not have an issue with Severn, you
not
can't have an
just a
issue with.
catchy
If
moniker.
you're not going to have an
When
issue with
given
Severn, you
that
can't have an
tag,
issue with
Ken
Shamrock.
Was probably the best mixed martial artist on the planet.
Very
A tough
similar
kid from a rough
backgrounds.
background, Shamrock came from a broken family and had run away from home, slept in cars, and been stabbed by the time he was 15, when most of our biggest worries usually revolved around GCSE results. Shamrock's early career in Japan involved both pro wrestling and MMA matches that earned him a reputation that attracted the attention of the burgeoning UFC. It was there that Shamrock really
I remember
cemented
those
his
early
legacy,
days of UFC.
fighting in
I
many
watched the
epics
first one.
and becoming the first UFC Super Fights champion. Shamrock had a noteworthy career in WWE, capturing the Intercontinental title and becoming King of the Ring before he got the itch to return to fighting for real and left the company at the height of its success. Though his later MMA career counts more losses than wins, a symptom of Shamrock continuing to fight well after his prime as age and injuries both took their toll.
You saw that
he
really when he
continued to
fought
prove to
Kimbo
everyone
Slice that
how
it just
hard-nosed he really was. The UFC
wasn't
Hall
there
of Famer
anymore when he
deserves
locked
more
him into a
credit
rear
than he gets
naked
for
choke
bringing
and
his
still couldn't put
hybrid
him away.
submission and suplex-based style to a global wrestling audience. Number 2, Kurt Angle.
Kurt
Do not
Angle's
let the
such
tiny
a
cowboy hat or
such a
milk truck
legit
fool-
badass. The only issue I would have here is you have other guys that have similar resumes to Kurt. Not they have gold medals in the Olympics, but were outstanding wrestlers. Great MMA backgrounds, and they're bigger than him. That does make it tougher when everything else is equal. Yeah, that's. I always remember, do you guys remember that show Joe's versus Pros they had on TV for a while? It was just where they would take some weekend athlete type guys, got gym rats and stuff, and they'd put them in competitions with real, legitimate professional athletes. I remember the one time they brought Kurt Angle into it. And one of the gimmicks of the show was having the Joes talk shit to the pros. And I remember thinking at the time, you guys might be making a mistake here. Don't piss this guy off. Kurt Angle's the All-American boy, but he's a little nuts. And he could have fucked those guys up if he wanted. I was surprised they got out of that without somebody getting
he couldn't
hurt.
whip the entire roster and barely break a sweat doing it. This is a man, lest we forget, that won an Olympic gold medal in freestyle
With a
wrestling, an
broken
Olympic gold
freaking
medal
neck.
that he won with, you know what I'm going to say,
Right.
a broken freaking neck. Yes, Angle's amateur wrestling
Angle
accomplishments are
got
well
so
documented, and he sits proudly in the
amazingly,
National Amateur
admirably
Wrestling
good
Hall
on the
of Fame.
mic, too.
Kurt came into
I always
WWE
appreciated
with a
that.
rep,
He was
and
a-
nobody fancied their chances
He was funny
testing
in his
him,
vignettes.
meaning that Angle's rookie years passed without incident. That's not to say, though, that there weren't times that Angle didn't need to tell someone what time it was. There was a backstage fight with a furious Eddie Guerrero who inexplicably tried to double-leg
takedown
the
him.
hero and was
Poor
promptly
Eddie.
neutralized with a simple but painful front face lock. All the time that Angle and Brock Lesnar were goaded into having
Nobody
an
knows what Eddie was
before a
thinking
live
there, not
event
even
during the
Eddie.
next big thing's early days in the company. Angle won that one too, apparently. Like the rest of the wrestlers on this list who received real validation thanks to wins in genuine contests, Angle never felt the need to start something with someone, unless, of course, it was part of a television segment that couldn't possibly go tits up.
Pewter.
Oh, it's real. It's damn real.
Freaking Daniel
Number
Pewter.
1, Brock
Gotta be Brock,
Lesnar.
yeah. You can't
I
fault
can
putting
almost
Brock at the
taste
top.
your
I mean,
smark-flavored
obviously.
tears. You may not like his part-time schedule. You may not like the fact that he's the best-paid wrestler on WWE's roster.
As
You
much
may
as
not
I would
like
have
the fact
Haku
that he
won.
ended the streak, but you damn
You
sure
can't-
aren't
I
gonna
just
say
don't see any
anything
way you can
about it,
take
at least
exception
to
to
his
Lesnar
face,
being
unless
one.
you want to be hammer-fisted into dust. Because Brock Lesnar, whether
'Cause
you like it or not, is the most
Lesnar,
legit
like
tough
Haku,
WWE superstar of all time.
He's
The
kind of
Beast
crazy
incarnate
himself. I
conquered
mean,
amateur
not to that
wrestling,
degree,
winning the
maybe, but
NCAA
you-
Division I
I wouldn't
heavyweight
want to try
title.
him.
He conquered the WWE.
I wouldn't want to take him
becoming
on in
the
a crazy
youngest WWE
contest.
champion in history. He left the WWE because he wanted to play professional football
Damn near
in
made
the
it.
NFL, despite not having played since high school, and was close to making it before
Yeah,
being cut from
he was the
sport
last
at
cut.
the last moment. He then decided to jump headfirst into the MMA world and conquered it, becoming UFC heavyweight champion in record time. He
Yeah.
survived landing on his
I
head
mean-
with a shooting star press
Oh,
gone
that
wrong
was
and
ugly.
successfully
I don't even like
battled
watching that.
debilitating diverticulitis.
That was terrible.
Simply put, Brock Lesnar is seriously tough, and nobody
Good
in
list.
WWE history has been able to do what he has.
I enjoy it. I like this guy a lot. Everything he puts together is so well done. Good list. Again, I just, from what I know of Ming and what I've been told about him from guys who are legitimate badasses. I just don't see how you keep him off the list. The one guy who never gets mentioned in here, and I think it's because he never got to be a huge name and was a real badass. Boy, I wish I still had contact info for him, because I'd love to have him on the channel here in some form or another. Was Ray Apollo, second guy to play Doink the Clown, and he was with WWE for years. That was a legitimate badass dude right there too. Good list though. I enjoyed it. What do you guys think? As far as Meng especially, do you guys think no, the Street Fighter has to be further down the list? Or do you agree with me that he's just so crazy in a street fight, he's got a legit shot against anybody?